And the breaking news is discussions have taken place between Arsenal and Chelsea over the possible move for Noni Madueke. Currently, the asking price from Chelsea is 50 million English pounds. Arsenal are not currently prepared to pay that. Keep an eye out on this deal. It's one that could progress slightly later in the transfer window. But 50 million pound quoted. Arsenal are looking at him and want him. Negotiations have begun.
I think that's madness. Can't lie to you. And I can't see Arsenal paying that 50 million, to be honest. But then again, they've done some wild things. They've bought Havertz. So maybe I should keep quiet. Me personally, like I said, I like Madueke. I actually do like Madueke. I think Madueke needs an arm around his shoulder. I think he needs a little bit more coaching to be more clinical. You know, I think Madueke's problem is always the end product. Is that once he can dribble, he can get past the player. I love the fact he's confident. He's a person that you need to keep pushing someone like Madueke to keep dribbling, because like he can take a man on and he can ghost the man, right? It's always the end product for me when it comes to Madueke. But you know, I hope that Chelsea don't sell him just yet. I think he's got a lot more potential to actually extract from him. And I think he could be a deadly player for Chelsea in coming years. But it's just that last aspect. If you can just get that clinical finish, he goes from just being a bang average player or a young potential player to being a great player in the Premier League. So it's just that last aspect. But hey, look, if Arsenal decide to buy him for 50 million, I probably guarantee Chelsea are going to accept it. They're going to accept it and tell him and go. And it's money on the books. And they're going to buy someone else, personally.
If Chelsea get offered 50 million quid from Arsenal for Noni Madueke, you bite their hand off, you run and you say no take-backs. Madueke is a decent footballer. Madueke is limited. I think there's parts of his game which he won't ever get to the top level in. And I think that ultimately, when Chelsea are going to be at their point in time where they're going to be challenging for the top honours, Noni Madueke will not be part of that team. So if you can, this is going to sound cynical, if you can get rid of him and stick him on someone else and make him someone else's problem for 50 million quid, that's a good deal, because I look at it from an Arsenal point of view. What fucking advantage is there to Madueke? Saka, unless he gets a hamstring injury for 3 months, plays pretty much every game. On the left, Madueke is not better than Martinelli, and he's not better than Trossard. I'm not saying better footballers, I'm saying in that position, for that role, what Arsenal need that left wing to do. He's not better at that job than those two. And Madueke certainly cannot play up front. So, right now, Arsenal will be spending £50 million on Noni Madueke to back up Saka for the cup games and the 5 league games that he might not play if he's looked after properly and doesn't pick up an injury. For £50 million, Arsenal need to spend that money on a starting left winger who is better than Martinelli and better than Trossard, or a starting number 9 who is better than Havertz, not on a backup right winger where not only is Bukayo Saka very rarely injured, you also have a backup there in Ethan Nwaneri, who has more potential than Madueke does, and is younger than Madueke is, and offers just something different. So the notion that Arsenal are going to sit there and pay £50 million for Madueke, who is decent, he's a serviceable footballer, but he's not a better left winger than their current options, and he's never going to take the right wing spot, for £50 million, mental to me. If Chelsea get offered that, and you've got Esteban coming in, and you've already got Pedro Neto, you take that and you run, and you can spend that money on the areas where it needs to be spent.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think 50 million you've got to take it. And I really do like Noni. I think he's just that bit away from like beginning to realize his potential. And like Tom said, there's stuff he's never going to be a creative wizard like Di Maria or Neymar or anyone like that, like a proper creative wide player. But he can be a bit like sort of like, he'll never reach levels of Mo Salah's goal scoring, but a winger who can actually cut in and score goals. A bit like Jared Bowen, where like he's not some world-class player, but he can consistently give you a good amount of goals every season. But if you get 50 million for that, when we've got a player who I personally believe is much more talented than Esteval coming in, and then we've got Pedro Neto and Cole Palmer can play on the right-hand side too. £50 million when we've got positions we need to upgrade, like our left winger spot, for example. For me, I think it's a no-brainer.
Look, I would say this. First and foremost, Arsenal are not offering 50 million. That's what Chelsea have quoted, and Arsenal said that that's far too much, which they're absolutely right on. He's not worth 50 million. We're going to get onto the Rodrigo story in a moment, but some conversations have come out from Spain today saying it's 77 million for Rodrigo. And if Rodrigo is 77 million, Madueke can't be 50 million, in my personal opinion. I do think this is one to watch, though, as the window moves on. And I don't think, again, people always go for the negative with Arsenal, go, oh my God, they need a much better left winger than this. This is obvious what they're looking at Madueke for. This is the alternative to Mbeumo. This is someone to come in and be a backup to Bukayo Saka. And if they can get him for a decent price, say 35 million, which would still be a slight profit for Chelsea. I think you pay 35 million euros for him. I don't think it's a bad backup option for someone like Bukayo Saka. I think Saka is better than him, no doubt. But they were never going to get Mbeumo to play second fiddle at his age to Bukayo Saka, not after the season that he's had. But I think there's a way of convincing Madueke to do that, especially if Chelsea say, thank you, good night, God bless, we want to move on. But it's got to be the right price. It's a bit like United looking at Emi Martinez. I think it's a massive upgrade on what we've got, but don't go and spend 40 million pounds. That's too much money. You're not going to get value for money on that. So Arsenal have got to try and drive that price down. Let's see what happens later in the window. I think it would also suggest if Chelsea are looking to do it, you guys are looking for more than one wide player. So Gittins might come in, but I think you're going to look for more than one. I know Espinal's coming in as a young player, but there are links. I mean, this is what could happen though. Garnacho could come in with Gittins, and then Madueke could join Arsenal. I would do that with Chelsea, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad deal for Arsenal as a backup to Bukayo Saka. They don't really have anybody. I think, again, with Noni, I always think he looks more dangerous when he comes on from the bench. I nearly always think that. I don't think he's as bad as people make out. There have been some people that have overhyped him a little bit as well. Man like Don, I think when he called him the best one-on-one winger in the Premier League or something like that. Statistically, it was right. But I did say, what happens after he beats his man? He's like, yeah, the end product ain't there yet. But yeah,
that's why I think that can be coached though. You mentioned Mo Salah, right? Mo Salah was not as lethal as he was when he was younger. You know what I mean? This is something that Mo Salah has to work on, and that's the difference between the great players and some of the players that are going to be okay. Mo Salah had to work on that quality of finishing. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, it takes an art, but it takes skill to do that. It takes hard work. Now, if Madueke is willing to do that work, I can see this brother being a top winger because he's not afraid to take on a man. We talked about Sancho a minute ago. Sancho looks like he's scared to take on somebody. After he gets tackled once, he's like, I ain't doing this again. But with Madueke, it's like, I will go against you again and again and again. And for me, that you can't buy that kind of mindset. And that's something that it just needs an end product in terms of get your head up, look for that pass, or that you're going to shoot. Make sure your shooting's on point. Right, so because I obviously I remember the days of Damien Duff and Iron Robin. Like, listen, Iron Robin, quality player, right? Obviously, when he left Chelsea, he was even more clinical, right? But Damien Duff with him and Robin on the wings, the quality of what they brought us, because they also had a great striker in the middle. So sometimes we struggle too, because I said this already. When Jackson's playing striking and he's not finishing chances, it makes everybody look worse. So it's like you're struggling even in that area. So I just think to myself, I think Chelsea needs to bank on him a little bit. Just give him a year or two more. I think this is a brother that can develop. I think get him a coach, get him on the finishing, and let him be lethal. You know what I mean? And this brother can be a dangerous player because he's willing to take on players. And there's not many players like that in the league, if I'm honest with you.
I think, though, with the finishing point, I get what you're saying about Mo Salah, but when Mo Salah was like 19, 20, you could see that he was a decent goal scorer at that point. He'd scored against Tottenham in the Europa League. He'd scored against Chelsea multiple times in the Europa League and the Champions League. In big games, he scored goals, and they weren't like scrappy goals. They were good finishes, composure, all that stuff. When I look at Madueke's goals, there's a couple of decent ones in there. I don't want to lie and say there's no decent ones, but he doesn't have the. When I look at him, he doesn't look like he's got the making of someone who's going to become this guy who can get you 15 goals in a season, 20 goals in a season. I think he's always going to have a limit of what he's going to do through play style and through just natural finishing mechanics that he's got. And I think that if you're going to try and mold him into this all-round threat winger, I feel like you might just be wasting your time with that. I feel like Madueke is one of them wingers who you kind of got to understand the strengths, understand the weaknesses, and just play to them. I don't think he's got the minerals to be this Mo Salah type winger who's going to get you, 15 goals a season, 20 goals a season. I just don't think he's got that instinct. I don't think he's got that natural setup for it.
It could come in. Twisted Bubba here says, Terry, can you name 5 right-sided, like right wingers with in the Prem with end product? Well, obviously you've got like Saka and Salah that you put out there straight away, but then there's Brian Mbeumo as an example. You've got Jard Bowen as another example. Jacob Murphy has developed in the last couple of years a good amount of output for a player in that position. So they're the ones that kind of stand out at the top of my head as an example. You could probably put Alanga this season had end product as an example. So there's that there. Like Noni, and that's where Noni can still develop because Alanga's come on leaps and bounds. Jacob Murphy, I don't know how old Jacob Murphy is. If I'm it doesn't feel like a young kid. Was he 25, 26? He's 30. Fuck me. Yeah. I didn't realize he was that old.
Oh, flipping hell.
His end product has come a little bit later on in life, but I still think there's room for Madueke to grow. It's just one of those deals that Arsenal would have to get done at the right price. Again, if they could do a deal, this is from their perspective, where they got him at 25 million and that's a backup to Saka. I think most Arsenal fans go, that's great. That's great because it's what he is. 30 million is probably the top end. You drop 50, you then start eating into the budget for other players, and it becomes a little bit more problematic. I really thought Jacob Murphy was younger than that, but you know what it is? Everyone looks younger because I'm getting old. That's the problem. All footballers look like kids nowadays to me because I'm an old geezer. But yeah, that's the breaking news on that. Whilst